a good number.
Okay.
So he didn't have to look at all the cameras.
This is kind of going to be preliminary, guys. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of depth or detail right now until I can talk to more of the officers and look at some of their reports and their supplements, or kind of at least get a conversation with them to see what all the facts are, though. But I can give you a little bit of the preliminary. This Schwan truck that you see over here in the parking lot of the Weinerschnitzel, it was stolen today at about 4:30. From where it was stolen at, I'm not exactly sure. None of the officers out here have that information, but it was reported stolen at about 4:30. At about 10:36 tonight, one of our officers spotted a Schwan truck, and they called dispatch asking for confirmation of the license plate number. They were told the license plate number of the stolen vehicle, which is the same one that's on the Schwan's truck. At that time, the officer turned on his overhead beacons and began to try to stop the Schwan's truck. And that happened, they tried to stop him here at about Boulevard and Fillmore. At that time, the Schwan's truck turned northbound on Fillmore and started going northbound on the Dumas Highway until it exited there at the River Road exit northbound. The officers tried to spike the car at Boulevard and St. Francis. He drove through the parking lot of the Toot and Totem there to avoid the spike strip, which actually took out the officer who was pursuing him. So we took our own car out. The unmarked car you see over here is one of our unmarked uniform patrol cars. They picked up the pursuit at that particular time. The vehicle went south, turned after it went through the parking lot, Toot and Totem, went southbound on River Road again. He crossed over Dumas Highway there near Wonderland Park and went on the westbound frontal road, still going southbound. At that time, they went on the Dumas Highway and all the way to about Northeast 10th, where it came on Pierce and then Northeast 10th. On Northeast 10th, he turned eastbound and came here to North Lincoln. At that particular time, one of our officers in this particular car right here, he took his spike strip out and ran to the intersection here to deploy his spike strip out into the street. He ran into the street to throw the spike strip. The spike strip didn't deploy as it was supposed to. There's a little pulley on the throwing rod. That string didn't deploy. He dropped it. He saw the truck coming at him, and they thought at first that he was going to cross that parking lot of that old abandoned gas station there. But when he got near, he turned towards the officer. The officer fired a single shot on the passenger side of the vehicle. From what I've been told, I have not seen much more of the person than just seeing his face. It struck him on the right side of his body, high up into the torso. The officers removed him from the vehicle. They began doing CPR until they were taken over by a fire department and ambulance, where he was pronounced dead here at the scene. He has no identification on him. We're in the process of running his fingerprints through our automatic fingerprint identification system, see if we can identify him to notify next to kin. As you can see, we're in the preliminaries here, probably tomorrow and stuff. Once I get a chance to talk further with the officer involved, I'll release his name. And we do have I'm told most of this incident is on the in-car cameras of the officers that were involved in the pursuit. Several officers in different places either tried to spike the car or have certain parts of this on their car, so we'll be reviewing those tapes. And we're really early into the investigation, and so far none of the people that were here has identified themselves to us as being an eyewitness to what took place. They heard a commotion but did not actually see the actual shooting. So if anybody saw that, as typical, I'd like them to call the Special Crimes Unit, where we can speak to them, 378-9468. And I'll have further on it tomorrow, probably. Make a either more in-depth news release, or I'll have a news conference sometime tomorrow to go into a little bit better detail.
Is there a justice of the peace?
Oh yeah, Judge Nancy Vasquez came out here. She did order an autopsy be performed. I'm not sure if that's going to be today or if that's going to be Wednesday. Just depends on what the pathologist in Lubbock has some time available. So,
where was the truck stolen?
I don't know. None of the officers out here has that information. So it was taken during probably the day shift or at changeover around evening shift. So I'll have to pull the report and see where it was stolen from.
And how did the truck end up there? He just kept driving once he was
drove,
shot?
He drove through the scene, hit the light pole in the parking lot at Weinerschnitzel, and the vehicle came to a stop.
Yell out.
I'm sure that that once he got hit, that in that quick a time, it must have been I don't know which part of which major organ was hit, but his wounds must have been massive and quick, and he slowed down and hit started slowing down as he hit that light, I think it is, and knocked it over. There's some damage there to the building. We've talked to one of the officers talked to whoever owns the Weinerschnitzel franchise here, and he's estimating $15,000 worth of damage to that light and some of his property there.
And he was dead inside the truck, right? He didn't get out.
Well, the officers took him out. I'm not going to say. I don't know whether he was deceased in or not. They took him out of the truck, put him down there, and began doing CPR. I'm going to go along with the fact that when the paramedics got here and they did all their stuff, they're the ones that said he was deceased and did that. So I don't know whether he was deceased in the truck, but I'm assuming pretty close to it, if not.
Was there any indication he had a weapon, or just that he was aiming his truck at the officer?
Nothing that I've seen so far. We'll have to dig through the truck and do further in there to see if there is, but there's no indications of any information the officers has or saw during the pursuit that indicated more than there was just the stolen vehicle that they were trying to stop. Yes.
So the shot came from the driver of this vehicle.
Came out of this one here, that officer, and over there by the intersection where the officer is standing.
Yes.
There, one of my officers. That's where actually where the shot took place at.
Okay, so there's one police officer and one gunshot.
Yes.
All right.
He was in the road, and of course the officers that were pursuing him in the car.
Mm-hmm.
But he said the officer said he jerked the wheel towards him, and the vehicle came towards him. He said all I could see was that big truck coming at him, and felt he had to get out of the road and protect himself. So he fired the one only shot that he fired,
mm-hmm.
and it struck him.
From the time the truck was taken or reported to be stolen, did you guys have any other reports on it, or
not that I'm aware of?
It was just seen?
Yeah, they put out all that information to the field officers about stolen vehicles. They give that back and forth on the shifts, so the officers were aware that there was a stolen truck and it was a Schwan's truck, and there's a limited amount of those in the city. So when they saw one, they asked a confirmation on the tag and found out that this was the one that was stolen. So that's pretty much, they have a bulletin board that they can access.
Mm-hmm.
The police department has stolen information, people that are wanted, and they can pull that up on their in-car computers. So they always have that information available to them. But sometimes when you're driving around trying to read the screen on your computer is not the best thing, because a lot of times
mm-hmm.
you may hit something that you don't want to hit, like a telephone pole yourself.
Are you going to identify the officer tonight?
I will, but probably not tonight. I'll probably do that tomorrow.
How far was the officer from the truck whenever he fired his weapon?
Pretty close. From where the shell casing is, the officer said he might have been about 3 or 4 feet out into the road. So.
Anything else in the truck, in the Schwan's truck, like drugs, money?
I don't know. I'm not going to go inside the truck. I'm not going to do it. That's what I have my ID guys do. They'll do all that stuff. They'll tell me if there's something in there. That's their job.
So your officer was out of his vehicle. He had tried to deploy those spike strips. The spike strips failed.
Well, they have a deal where there's the strip itself. There's three components of it. There's 3 sections.
Mm-hmm.
When you deploy it,
mm-hmm.
you throw it, and there's a rope kind of attached to it, and that rope's supposed to feed out of this pulley system.
Mm-hmm.
When he threw it, the pulley system did not let the rope go out there, so he wasn't really able to throw it out the way it is, because you're doing it for safety purposes.
Right.
You don't want to be out in the road any further. Usually you want to throw it, pull the strip, drop the rope, and get out of there so you don't get run over. But this particular time the rope didn't deploy, so the spike strip's still over there in the road, or right at the curb, and it's just malfunctioned the way it was.
That's what got the officer out of his vehicle. So when the Schwan's truck seemed to turn toward him, that's when it was big and yellow and coming his way. Okay.
That's when he fired the shot. That's the typical thing on most of these deals. You want to, if you can set up and do a spike strip to disable the tires and get them to stop, so that you can stop the pursuit as safely as possible. That every one of the officers has a spike strip in their car, and it's typical of the way we try to stop a pursuit, if we can, is to use spike strips on the vehicle to at least deflate the tires. And they tried, and they had set up at several locations all throughout this pursuit to do it, but every time he either saw them do it or knew they were doing it and was trying to avoid it. I don't know whether that's the case here, whether he saw the officer fixing to throw the spike strip out or saw him there, and he started to deploy that, and he tried to avoid where the spike strip was. A lot of times that's what they do.
What was the race of the suspect?
Huh?
What race was the suspect?
I'm not going to comment on it and tell you it's a male until I get him positively identified.
Was there much traffic on the road at the time? Was there much traffic out here at the time?
I haven't. I haven't asked. I just asked what the chase was as far as what other information there is on the traffic. I'll have to get from their in-car cameras or everything else.
And how long was the chase in total?
Hold on for just a second.